Good morning. Today is the 8th day of Cheshvan. It's the 23rd of October. We're up to the second reading of Parashat Lecha, the adventures of Abraham. In today's reading, Abraham has to go down to Egypt. We said he kept going more in a southerly direction. We explained that yesterday, and now he ends up having to leave the land of Canaan, and he is ending up now in Egypt. And as he approaches Egypt, he knows that it's going to be more difficult than it was until now. And he says, as he approached Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, right? Her name was Sarai before it was Sarah, before God changed both Abraham and his wife's names. So the name was Abram and Sarai until they became Abraham and Sarah. As he approached Egypt, he said to his wife, "Look, I know you to be a woman of beautiful appearance." This in and of itself is something that's talked about a great deal, because it says "look" in the beginning. Hinei. Hinei is like a cry of surprise. Look. It's like you say something that you haven't seen before. And so Rashi and the sages talk about this, that he had never indulged in his wife's beauty. And this was the first time he had looked at her. We talked a little bit about being able to look at someone objectively. Last year it was actually, or it was a few weeks ago. And he had never looked at his wife that way. He had always seen her for who she was. And now as they're approaching Egypt, he suddenly sees that she is of great beauty. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, "This is his wife," and they will kill me and allow you to live. So because they are not so steeped in adultery, but they are very much steeped in murder, they will kill me so that you have no husband, and then they will take you. So Abraham says, he pleads with her, he says, "If you would, say that you are my sister, so that it may go well with me for your sake. Through you, my life will be spared." So there are a lot of words here that Abraham says to his wife, to Sarai, and we want to understand these. Now, in this week's Wonders, when we talk about this, so the first thing that we learn from this, that it should go well with me, the whole idea that it should go well with me tells us, and this is a very basic, one would say Jewish approach to marriage, is that the well-being of the family, meaning the wealth, the prosperity, how prosperous they are, all that depends on the woman. It doesn't depend so much on the man. It's true that the man is the one who usually is a breadwinner, but his actions are only successful thanks to his wife. And that's like a staple of Jewish thought to see it this way. In fact, when I encounter once in a while someone who doesn't know this, I try to spend an amount of time with them trying to explain this to them, why they should see it this way. And as Maimonides writes, the more that a man honors his wife, the more he is honored in the world. And honor for a man is usually success. It's the way that most males measure their honor, is by how successful they are. And so Maimonides says this, one is completely dependent on the other. So this is the first point here to gather from this interchange between Abraham and Sarah. But there's another question here. Why is the solution here for her to say that she's a sister? In fact, even though all the well-being comes from the wife, Abraham here is putting her in a very strange position. He's saying, all my benefit is dependent on you, so I want you to lie and to do so and so that I benefit. He doesn't say so that just so that I stay alive. He says, so that I'm benefited. initially he says, they will kill me and take you. But then he doesn't say lie so that I stay alive. He says lie and say that you're my sister, because then it will go well with me. In other words, and that's exactly what happened, they gave him many gifts, they made him very wealthy as a result of this being his sister and his giving her, as it were. And this was, the undercurrent of, or the understatement here was, or the subtext here was, that they will take you, but at least I'll do well. And that's a very, very difficult thing to understand. How could Abraham had said something like this? The Zohar asks this question, and he says that Abraham, this is the way that the Zohar thinks, that Abraham and Sarah had guardian angels, but they were different. And Abraham he knew Sarah's angel, and he knew that it was a more powerful angel than the one that was protecting him. And so therefore he said, I know you'll be okay, and therefore I want you to protect me. Says the Zohar, by saying that she's his sister, they will begin to share her angel. This is a very interesting concept in itself. We don't have time to get into it enough right now, but it's saying that sort of people understand this, that within a certain family there is a spirit that is shared by all the members of the family. So we wouldn't call this today an angel, because we don't usually deal with these things, but we would say there is a certain mazel to this family. We'd say something like that. They have a certain protection from above, or something like that. So says Abraham, if you're my sister, we're closer, and I will benefit from your angel. Now he says two different things here. He says, the first thing he says is, it will go well with me. And then he says, through you my life will be spared. So he's saying two things. He's saying, the translation in English doesn't do it justice. I have to do it more precisely. He says, on the one hand, it will go well with me, and my spirit will be enlivened by you. That's the exact translation. V'chayta nafshi biglalech. The Zohar says, he told her that thanks to what you will do, thanks to your act of saying that you're my sister, not only will I have a portion in this world, the wealth that he will receive here, but my spirit will be enlivened thanks to you, refers to the world to come. And so the Zohar adds here that not only is the wealth that a person accrues in this world dependent on his wife, but the portion of the world to come that he will receive is also dependent on his wife. And there's a famous story in the Talmud, we don't have time for it right now, about Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa and his wife, and that she was able to see that by taking a contribution, let's call it, by taking charity, he had lost some of their portion from the world to come, and she forced him to give it back. And when she gave it back, she saw that their portion had been restored. Only she could see this. He couldn't see this. He couldn't understand this. All this goes to explain to us that the relationship between a husband and wife is such that there is a lot of dependence. Well, we know that there's dependence for the woman on the man, because that's exactly what the Torah, one might say, cursed Eve with. Ve'lishech chukatech. Your craving will be for your husband. What this means is, and I will be talking about this, God willing, on Thursday night in Los Angeles, is that because a woman is taken from her man, there is a need to connect. There's always a feeling of being out of place, that only marriage gives that room to the woman. That need for connection is always there, and if it's not marriage, it has to be found in different ways. A woman always needs to feel in context, connected in a certain way, that gives her the security that she needs in order to function. So we know that there's a dependency between the woman and the man, but what is this dependency between the man and the woman? And the way that the sages build this, and this is one of the first examples, is that everything that has to do with a man's spirituality, his character, how he changes, how he's able to become something different, depends on his wife. It depends on the woman that he marries. And there's a story in the Talmud that says everything is from the woman, and there it explains that there was this one woman who married a great tzaddik, and she was a very negative person, and he slowly deteriorated. And there was another woman who married a terrible person, and she was a great, a very righteous, pious woman, and slowly he elevated to the level of piety. It all comes from his wife. Everything that has to do with the spirituality, actually, the man is dependent on his wife. Now, this is a very interesting thing, because what is this saying in its essence? In our generation, there's a lot of, how should I say it exactly, hard feelings about the fact that women are taking more and more of a important position in society. This is exactly what is needed in order to change, the feminists call this toxicity. But there is an element in the male world that cannot be rectified until it listens to the advice of the woman. There's something in the masculine side of reality that is not yet rectified. And the only way it can be rectified if there's a willingness to listen to how the feminine side of reality sees things. And this is one of the most important things about what we call the rise of the feminine. And here, Abraham and Sarah serve as one of the first examples of this, that not only is his honor, meaning his standing in this world, dependent on her, but even his portion in the world to come, meaning the good deeds that he does, everything that he's able to do, is also dependent on her. And that's one of the lessons that we take. It's a beautiful thing that's in the second reading. The second reading is always related to Gevura, to might, the first of the feminine sfirot in the 7 emotive sfirot. It's another example of this. In Wonders, we had to cut it short. If you go to the Patreon site, patreon.com/galeinai, then you should be able to read the full article, which had a lot more information about the angel and how that worked, and some beautiful, beautiful numerical equivalencies, some gematriot there that are really beautiful. So thank you very much for joining. I hope to see you tomorrow at the same time, but from Los Angeles. Now, it might not work out because my flight is supposed to arrive at 6 a.m. If I'm not able to get to out of the airport on time, then I will be teaching probably 2 hours later, 8 a.m. Pacific time. I believe that's about 11 a.m. Eastern time. Hope to see you tomorrow.